2,000 years ago, in the Western Han Dynasty, there was a young man named Kwang Hung. He came from a poor family and had to work from an early age. Kwang went into service for a wealthy family. When he did so, he requested that they did not pay him anything for his work beyond some food. However, he had one other request, that they let him borrow and study the books that they owned. His employers agreed, but his days were all too often completely taken up with work, and at night it was too dark for him to read in his room. He had no money to buy oil for a lamp. One evening, as Kwang lay on his bed, reciting books that he had been able to memorize that day, he noticed a glimmer of light coming from a chink in his wall. Inspired, he took a knife to enlarge the chink to a small hole, which let through enough light for him to read by. The youth who was so dedicated to his nightly studies would grow up to become a minister in the service of the emperor. Such stock tales are common in Chinese folklore. However, they express a real popular recognition of the power of literacy and learning, and of the individual's will to succeed against all the odds. But Kwang Hung lived at a time when there was no open examination system to offer a route to preferment. When the Imperial examination arrived, how did it affect people's attitude towards learning? Could the simple ideals of a youth like Kwang Hung survive in a new age of competition? Two and a half thousand years ago, as Confucius stood on the banks of a river, he observed, as night follows day, time flows away like the waters in the river. Confucius was a man who was firm in his beliefs, and one of those beliefs was that men of true learning and integrity had a duty to offer themselves for government service.
学而优则仕这句话出自《论语》，其实在这句话前面还有一句，叫仕而优则学。这两句话的意思是，才学优秀的人可以去做官，以检验平时的学养；而做官的人如果有闲暇时间，则应该去读读书，以弥补道德与学问的不足。
Confucius believed that good government could only come about through learning and learned men. He stipulated that a learned man should not only refine his personal virtue, but also seek peace and prosperity for his family, his country, and the whole world.
孔子提出学而优则仕，第一次明确地将读书与从政挂钩起来，把从政以行道作为私人学习的目的，所以这思想影响大批德才兼备的知识精英通过考试进入仕途。在科技盛行的1300多年中，使人从政之风长盛不衰。
One day in 1014, students were reciting their books in Ying Fu Academy in Henan. As one of the top 4 academies in the empire, Ying Fu had more than 150 classrooms and a library of thousands of books. That day, as the students were engaged in a morning reading session, news came that the emperor was passing by en route to a nearby palace. The students all rushed out to see the emperor's carriage, all except one, who continued with his reading, saying, "I will see His Majesty later." The following year, this student took the metropolitan examination, where his excellent performance earned him an invitation to the royal palace for an interview with the emperor. The student's name was Fan Zhongyan, one of the most important poets and statesmen of the Northern Song dynasty. Fan Zhongyan was born in 989 AD. His father died when he was just a year old, and his mother remarried a wealthy man called Zhu. When Fan learned the truth about his parentage, he left home. In 1011, he entered the Ying Fu Academy and quickly became the most diligent of all students. Without support from his family, Fan lived a life of austere poverty. The story goes that every morning he would cook himself a pot of congee, which would last him the rest of the day. Seeing this, a well-off classmate once sent him some expensive food. But Fan wouldn't touch it, and it was left to go bad. The classmate was annoyed. Fan apologized by saying, "I'm resigned to living on congee. If I ate such fine food, I would be again." In 1015, Fan passed the palace exam and became a presented scholar. Position, the first of many, which allowed him to take his mother into his household, and he readopted his true father's name. By 1043, he had risen to the height of vice-chancellor to the emperor. In this reforms to curb corruption in administration and improve the education of officials.
著名的北宋青年新政就在范仲淹的领导下全面展开了。施政后短短几个月，政治局面便焕然一新。虽然后来改革营造的既得利益集团的阻挠而失败，但却反映了科举出身的范仲淹的政治作为，其先天下之幼而优，后天下之弱而弱的名句，正是他胸怀天下的喜兆。
Aside from his writing, Fan's most lasting legacy was a drive to expand publicly funded education. This allowed an ever wider range of talented young men into the administration, and in turn increased both social mobility and social cohesion. It's 781 AD, and the 39-year-old Emperor Teng Dezong has been on the throne for just over a year. The emperor is concerned to reduce the power of the regional military governors, who had grown ever more powerful since the Great Ansha Rebellion of the 750s. The governor of Chengde in North China dies, and his son Li Wei writes to the emperor asking to be appointed in his father's place. The emperor declines, hoping to rein in these provincial dynasties. The result is an uprising, as Li is joined by the governors of 4 neighboring regions, all seeking to protect their hereditary rights. Worse still for the emperor, when his summoned reinforcements arrive in the capital, they too rebel, complaining about their food and conditions. The humiliated emperor is forced to flee. The situation disintegrates further as a usurper claims the vacant throne in Chang'an. To save the empire from disaster, Lu Jia, a scholar at the Royal Academy, proposes to the runaway emperor that he issue a proclamation blaming himself for all the troubles and offering an amnesty to all those who have rebelled.
陆至于大历8年考取进士，德宗继位后诏为翰林学士。当时叛乱又加兵变，让唐德宗赶位，是以天命非由人事。而陆主席坚持认为治乱由人不在天命，要在出众复杂的局势中取得支配地位，人心向背是关键。
On the first day of the Chinese New Year, Emperor Dezong issued his decree of self-condemnation, drafted by Lu Jia. In it, the emperor declares, "I grew up in a palace, negligent of welfare of the people. I was ignorant of the hardships of the farmers in the field or soldiers on the battlefield. I understood not the condemnation from heaven, nor the suffering of the people. The decree was written in touching and emotive language. It was not for nothing that examinees were tested on their ability to write poetry. The ploy worked. With the promise of amnesty and a relief from taxes, the rebels submit once more to the authority of the emperor. For once in the history of the empire, the writing brush really had proved mightier than the sword.
中国历史上像范仲淹、陆贽那样有克举入世、从正义行道的知识分子不在少数。譬如抗击辽军入侵、化解民族危机的北宋政治家寇正，为拯救王朝危机而誓制变法的北宋政治家王安石，为保社稷平安而正肃朝纲、改革税制的明朝改革家张居正，救万民于黄河之灾的清朝治水名臣景复等等，都是由科举培养和选拔的优秀人才。
Back in the 7th century, Empress Wu observed that one of her advisors seemed suddenly to have made great strides in his literary technique. She invited him to the palace to find out more. The advisor immediately confessed that he had just acquired a new assistant who had excelled in the Imperial examination. The advisor offered to resign in favor of the younger man. "No need," replied the Empress. "I have no shortage of positions for men of true talent." Zheng Jiajian, the young scholar in question, was then summoned to an audience with the Empress. As was deemed fitting for such an occasion, a screen was set up between the Empress and her subject. After making his obeisance, Zheng spoke up. "If your Majesty cannot see me face to face, I fear I will not be able to show the sincerity of my heart." The Empress was not one to be offended by such temerity. The screen was removed, and Zheng's eloquence and bearing soon impressed her enough to see him appointed to a high position.
张家珍所谓的君臣之道，是指君能尽臣之才，而臣能效命于君，是希望君臣之间能够充分的沟通交流，以使臣能得到君王的赏识和重用。
A few years later, Empress Wu's grandson, Li Longji, came to the throne. Zheng Jiajian had proved himself in the service to the emperor and his grandmother, but he was keen for more responsibility. Addressing his monarch at an audience, he said, If you are willing to trust me with greater responsibilities, please don't wait until I'm too old. Because life is too short, and few are able to live to 100 years old. Fortunately, the emperor was amused. A few years later, Zheng Jiazhen got his sought-after appointment as Imperial chancellor. But Zheng's boldness and humor were unusual among those who served in the imperial government.
唐代思想家、文学家韩愈比较了先秦士人和秦以后士人的处境，认为先前立国纷争，士可则君，而秦以后天下业君，唯有君则士，士不能则君。一旦士不能为君所用，便别无出路。所以，即便是超群之士，对君王也难免落魄起。 这正是中国古代士人的悲剧所在。
In 775 AD, a young student named Wang Bo was studying at Yangzhou's Mulan Temple. Having lost his parents when he was a child, he was a homeless orphan. In Imperial China, the starving or dispossessed often joined monastic orders simply to survive. At sunset, a bell would be rung to summon everyone for the evening meal. On this particular day, it seemed to Wang Bo that the bell was tolled much later than usual. Hearing it, he set off to find his dinner. But when he arrived, he saw all the food was gone. The monks had played a trick on the impoverished Wang Bo. With no money to contribute to his upkeep, they had rung the bell late so as to leave him no food. Their Buddhist charity would stretch no further. Humiliated, Wang Bo packed up his things and left the temple. Before he went, he wrote on the wall, "What means Buddhist teaching when the class is over? Shame on monks who eat first and then ring the bell." "20 years later, Wang Bo visited the Mulan Temple again, now a presented scholar and governor of Huainan. When the monks ushered him into the temple, he saw his verse on the wall covered by a silk frame. He then wrote another couplet beneath the original, plastered with dust for 20 years. Today it is presented with a silk cover.
从当年饭后中的尴尬到后来必杀中的礼遇，说明的不仅仅是人情冷暖、世态炎凉，更说明科举对人的命运所起的关键作用。世人从政皆有行道，也就是实行政治抱负，和求乐，也就是谋生，双重目的。绝大部分世人分至科场，是出于现实层面的需求，即通过科举来确认投递光宗耀祖。
To make it on to the final list of candidates was considered one of the greatest honors a scholar could achieve. Meng Jiao, a Tang poet, repeatedly failed the imperial examination. He wrote of the experience, rejected again and again, each time as painful as a wound from a sword. When he finally passed, he wrote, "Proud as a springtime prancing horse, today I embrace all the blossoms of the capital." In the Sui and Tang dynasties, when the exam system was first established, success only earned the candidates the potential to fill government positions. It brought more in prestige than real power or wealth. In 977 AD, the second emperor of the Song personally took control of the imperial examination. He was the first emperor to offer positions to all the successful candidates as a matter of course after the results were announced. Under the Song dynasty, the vast majority of government posts came to be filled by successful examination candidates. The Song was also quick to introduce anonymous marking to increase the fairness of the system. In 1371, when Hong Wu, founder of the Ming dynasty, held his first palace examination, he offered all 120 of the successful scholars a post in government.
朱元璋还确立了中外文臣皆由科举进这个文官选拔原则，规定各省乡试考中的举人，即便是考不取进士，也可担任地方文官。会试录取者，可任中央的下级官员，或者担任地方的州县官员。进士一家前3名，就是状元、探花、榜眼，入翰林院任职。
The privileges that came with officialdom were an undeniable attraction for many. The influence and prestige that came with a government position meant that all of the officials' relatives would prosper, pretty much irrespective of merit or desire, as people sought to curry favor with the official. Nor was the government slow to advertise the benefits of service. The third Song emperor, Zhenzong, wrote of how successful examination candidates could look forward to a life of luxury, spoiled with all the pleasures of the flesh. The importance of examination success was even celebrated in fiction. In the Yuan dynasty novel, The Romance of the West Chamber, the widow of a former chancellor is traveling with her daughter to bring her husband's body back to his hometown. En route, the widow, Madame Sui, and her daughter Ying Ying stay over at a temple. As they walk in the garden, Ying Ying catches the attention of a young scholar, Zhang Sheng. Zheng learns from the monks that Ying Ying is in the habit of going to pray in the gardens in the evenings on her own. Zheng makes a plan to meet her. Romance ensues. But then their happiness is blighted when a rebel general hears of Ying Ying's beauty and surrounds the temple. The bandit intends to take Ying Ying away by force. Madame Sui promises that she'll marry her daughter to whoever can drive the ruffians away. Zhang Sheng writes to a friend, another general, for rescue. Three days later, the rescue force arrives and the bandits are driven off. When Zhang Sheng asks Madame Sui to fulfill her promise and marry Ying Ying to him, she demurs, saying Ying Ying cannot marry him until he has passed the Imperial examination. Zhang Sheng and Ying Ying have to part as he heads on to the capital to study. The story has a happy ending when he wins third place in the palace exam and is duly rewarded with his bride. Tales of love between the daughters of wealthy nobility and impoverished scholars are often repeated in Chinese folklore. The Pearl Tower tells a similar tale.
西洋棋的核心戏剧冲突与男主人公能否取得功名密切相关。这说明婚姻的背后是学而优则仕的科技价值观在发挥作用。西洋棋虽然是戏剧作品，但也是现代社会的写照。才子佳人式的浪漫传记的真正意义是强调其中的现代关系，是虚拟而落过的功利诉求。
Emperor Tang Xuanzong in the 9th century favored successful scholars as husbands for his daughters. After one set of exams was over, he said he found the perfect man for his favorite daughter, Princess Yongfu. Someone had recommended to him a county magistrate called Yu Song. Yu Song was on the lowest rung of the imperial administration, but he had a reputation for honesty as well as for his intellect, and was seen as a great prospect for higher office. The emperor decided to marry Princess Yongfu to Yu Song and duly promoted him to a higher position. But then, one day, when the emperor was having lunch with the princess, she threw a tantrum. To punish her, the emperor announced that he had changed his mind. She would not be married to Yu Song, and that he would marry another of his daughters, the Princess Guangde, to him instead.
普通家庭与皇室联姻，这在唐代以前是不可想象的。唐以前，士人婚姻注重门第，数座平民与豪门氏族不允许通婚。唐以后，随着科举的兴盛，出现娶妻不问家世、婚姻不问发育的现象，世俗在课堂上合流，婚姻也由原先的重门第转向重科第。
The imperial examinations had thus started to influence not merely the administration of the empire, but the social calculations and marriage customs. Scholarship, combining intellect and culture, had become an asset to be prized above all others, and an inalienable inheritance. China's economic growth in the Ming Dynasty saw an ever-increasing number of would-be candidates. A booming printing industry turned out cheap copies of the Confucian classics, as well as collections of successful examination answers. Almost 25,000 men passed the palace exam in the 276 years that the dynasty lasted. Public schools and private academies both flourished. The erection of decorative ceremonial arches to celebrate a success in scholarship bears witness to the achievement involved. It also bears witness to the second fact that for all the theoretical equality of opportunity, the successful candidates came predominantly from the wealthy land-owning classes. This was because only they could routinely afford the time and other resources on which success in the exams depended. All the dedication to scholarship of so many emperors, in 1620, an emperor came to the throne who was illiterate. Possibly he suffered from learning difficulties, but the Emperor Tianqi had but one love, carpentry, at which he excelled. With an illiterate 15-year-old on the throne, power fell into the hands of the eunuchs of the royal palace, and one eunuch in particular, Wei Zhongxian. As the emperor took no interest in state affairs, gradually all his imperial authority came to be wielded by the eunuch. Such was Wei's power and the fear of it that officials would compete to build temples dedicated to him. Ironically, Wei Zhongxian was himself illiterate, being from a poor peasant family southeast of Beijing. Having married in his teens, he is said to have castrated himself at the age of 21 in order to qualify for his new career path. A relative was able to get him an introduction to work in the Wanli Emperor's harem. Folklore and legend have not remembered Wei kindly. Legend says he was a wastrel and gambler before entering royal service. In 1622 and 1624, some scholars of the Donglin Academy protested to the emperor about Wei's behavior. But Wei's control of a uniformed police command made him a figure to be reckoned with. The scholars were rounded up, tortured, and executed. The pendulum swung the other way after Tianqi died and was succeeded by his brother, the Emperor Chongzhen. At first, Wei was left in place, but as the protests against him mounted, the emperor took action. When Wei was summoned back to the capital to face Inquisition, he chose instead to hang himself from a beam in a roadside tavern.
雍氏的产生有其社会根源，科举官僚政治决定了士人处于以禄养家的经济地位，君以禄驱使臣为其效劳。这种君臣关系决定了士人本能于国家主人的地位，也本能于国家主人的意识。君齐国为家，杂居天下；臣为君所驱使的同时，以权谋私，剥民以自肥，也就在所难。
The Imperial examination satisfied the needs of two types of people. There were the idealistic intellectuals who wanted to work for the betterment of the people and the country. And on the other hand, there were those who just sought wealth and power. China was an agricultural society where merchants and traders were looked down upon, so the best route to social advancement was through a position in government.
封建时代把人划为士农工商四个等级，士就是读书人，为市民之首；农排在第二，商为末等。商人往往在积累一定财富之后，希望子弟读书应试，考取功名，因为他的内心深处还是把科举作为正途，从商则是迫不得已的末计。
The exam system offered opportunities to the idealistic and the self-serving in equal measure. For the government, it ensured a supply of capable men willing to serve in all parts of the empire and educated to the standards of a cohesive common culture. But it was the education of the elite. During the Ming Dynasty, it's estimated that the presented scholars represented just 1 in every 10,000 of the adult male population. The stories of scholars' extraordinary determination and ability reflect an awe inspired by this almost magical rarity. For over 1,000 years, it was the Chinese dream to study, to succeed in the imperial examinations, to serve in the government, to bring wealth and honor to the family, and peace and prosperity to the country. rise of scholarship has left a deep mark on Chinese culture down to this very day. Money may come and go, but education is currency that can never be exhausted. By the late 19th century, many in China felt the system had become an anachronism. In 1898, the Emperor Guangxu accepted proposals for modernization as part of the 100 Days Reform. The reforms were quashed by the Empress Dowager Cixi, and the exams themselves finally ran out of time in 1905. The pressures of China's education system today and the struggles of the university entrance exam seem in many ways to repeat those past strivings. So it is small wonder that parents still seek to inspire their children with tales of those hard-working scholars of ancient times.